Career Navigation in Communication, Matching Passion with Purpose. Navigating career transitions gracefully takes time, patience, and a good solid plan. In this session, you'll discover how to align your passions with opportunities and find the perfect fit for your evolving interests. Imran obtained his graduate degree from Portland State University in 2008. Immediately after that, he began his college teaching career. He taught persuasion and leadership at the University of Portland and later interpersonal communication courses at Oregon State University for 8 years. Imran has worked as a college educator for more than 14 years, and he also worked on a small business venture for 5 years as the director of operations. From that experience, he's able to bring real-life anecdotes into class discussion and material for workplace-related discourse. Haider joined the Murrow College in 2020, teaching public speaking in the digital age. In the past, he has presented research on the misperception of terrorism in mainstream news, and after traveling to Karachi in 2016, how the culture of individualism and uncertainty avoidance in Karachi, Pakistan is misconceived. Imran has also built the course DEI in Communication Organizations, the first class of its kind for the Murrow College. Please welcome Imran.
Thanks for coming. That makes me sound like somebody important. I'm just a normal guy. But I'm really glad because we have brilliant professionals here that are going to share some of their experience. So I want to encourage you to ask questions as they come up. I want it to be interactive. Sorry, I'm losing my voice day 4 for me. So, so what we want to do in here is obviously the theme of symposium, and we want to offer untold stories or anecdotes that might help you make decisions as you get ready for graduation, maybe sooner or later. And one of the things that was annoying to me when I finished my bachelor's degree is I graduated early and I thought I was so cool and I was ready to be a grown-up, and then I didn't know how to get a job or what I wanted to do. And I wrote I was a sports journalist in college, and so I thought, naturally, I'm just going to do that. And then I went and did it, and I hated it. And so behind that I could tell you with details, but I didn't know how to identify what I wanted to do, enjoyed, and what jumped me out of bed in the morning. So the first thing I want you to do before we get in their intros, if you want the ability to write down, or you can type it in your phone, think of 5 things that jump you or motivate you to get out of bed in the morning. You don't have to jump out of bed. You can just roll out. But what are 5 things in life that you want to really do and that get you out of bed in the morning? 21, my list would be like donuts, basketball, video games. And if that's it for you, that's fine too. But think about those 5 things, and then later you can think about 5 things that you're really good at and 5 things you care about. And those are the 3 areas that I tell my students to think about, is the 5 things you're super good at and the 5 things that you care about in life. And hopefully we can create some overlap, and that is some of the rest of using possibly the right company and the right. Go ahead.
Okay, well, my name's Marc Anderson. I graduated in 1996, and we had to fight off doors to get to class back then, so it's a lot easier born. And I'm part of a group that has met, alumni group that has met for 42 straight years. We think we're the longest running alumni group that's there. So I'll tell you their nicknames. My nickname is Blind. I was a guy in college with the big, thick glasses. And then we've got Sugar Bear, we got John Boy, we got Bo, and we got Squat and Squirrel. So there's 7 of us. So we're going to be meeting actually in July. So anyway, I graduated and I had it lined up, fortunately, right out of college because getting right into the teeth of a really bad recession. So I was very fortunate. I was the assistant editor at the Grant County Journal in Ephrata, but I had an internship at the Camas Washougal Post-Record down in Southwest Washington, and I was able to make connections with people at the Columbian, the Vancouver Columbian. So I was only at Ephrata for 6 months, and then the Columbian opened up a job, and I was down there as a reporter and editor for years. And then an opportunity came in the insurance business of all things. So I took a job as a trainee claims adjuster. Found out I was pretty good at it, communications and being able to talk to people and convince them of certain things. And so I realized education, so I got insurance agent's license and 2 designations in risk management. So I did that with a Fortune 500 liability for about 7 years. Then I got out of risk management for 13 years and did all kinds of different things with the facility down in Portland. Mergers and acquisitions, labor relations, safety, customer service. And I got it. An organization, when they find somebody that can actually information, think like a reporter, take in a lot of information, assimilate it into a readable source, and then send it out to the audience, you become a hot commodity in an organization. Every place I've worked, it seems, we've had surveys. What are the employees thinking? We need to know what the employees are thinking. And so those surveys, the number one issue everywhere I've worked is questions. And unfortunately, sometimes thinks, well, we need to communicate more with people. We need to tell them more what's going on. In reality, management needs to learn to understand what's going on and take that in and use that information, real life information. So as an education professional, a lot of times you can be the conduit of that. So I ended up a risk manager at Portland Schools and Sonoma County, and then I became a vice president at an insurance company that specialized in Native American risks. So that was really interesting because each tribe had its own laws, and we had to design a program to coordinate with whatever their laws were. The nation, they could make up basically any kind of laws that they wanted. So it's been a great roughly 4 years management. During that time, I also stayed with my passion, which is writing, and so I wrote the first history of Vancouver, Washington. I've also, at age 62, I'll be 70 in July. 62, I took up screenwriting, some of them, they talk about don't be afraid to make mistakes, which is true. My first screenplay that I wrote, I sent it down to a friend of a friend in Hollywood. Didn't hear anything for a while, and she sent it back, and she was just brutal. Anyway, so I didn't get discouraged. It was just, thank you, sir, may I have another, type thing. So she agreed to read it after I made some more changes. Sent it down again, waited, came back, and he read Marc's. And I said, will you read it one more time? She said, sure. So I sent it down a third time, waited. She called me and she goes, you know what, you might have something here. I'm not going to send it back to you. It's ready to go. So I guess my point in that story is no matter industry you go into, keep your passion for communications, whatever that may be. For me, it was writing. I love to write, and I've had some success, believe it or not. I've got 4 screenplays done, and they won 12 big awards. Problem is trying to get noticed down in Hollywood when you live in Ridge, Washington. So anyway, that's my story. My wife is here. She's been a big support in every way. And she would attest to the fact that I'm like the total Coug. If you look at my wardrobe,
Nice.
everything has got the Cougar logo on it. So,
Well done.
yeah, but I got to tell you, I couldn't be more proud of, being a Murrow graduate after this. It's been fantastic.
Awesome.
So
Nicole?
great. Hi, everybody. My name is Nicole Sanchez. I graduated here in broadcast news with a minor in political science in 1999. And I didn't have the money to come all 4 years. I did community college first. I was originally from the Seattle area. and what was then Bellevue Community College is now Bellevue College. And I actually started coming to Symposium in 1996. I did radio there because they didn't have a TV program. A teacher would bring us here to Symposium. I think I've been to 8 or 9 symposiums for me. So I was coming to this event before I actually got to go. And come junior, to be honest, if some of you answered in, is a little tough. I had to really push in and make a way and get involved and volunteer in everything I could. Cable Aid, I think I was the promotions director for the radio station. I was vice president of Alpha Epsilon Rho, and I was a leadership kid. One of the organizations with NATAS Northwest, I recently served 4 years as president. Does anybody know anything about NATAS? What we do, or?
Good chance.
Yeah. So the Northwest chapter has 5 states. I'm currently a trustee and the chair of the diversity committee, which I created in 2020. And we have scholarships, so I have to always give my little spiel. Sure. We give now scholarships are really nicer numbers. We give 50 out 3 students, so $5,000 each. But I think the best part is we give a 1-year mentorship with those. And we will match you up with someone who is in where you want to be, what your passion is. We love to get you with a board member. We're a board of about 36 people, but it doesn't have to be that way. It's someone, a very type of graphic designer that took a while, but we were able to match them up. So in Pullman High School, we just won a national award for student awards, which is huge. So I highly encourage everybody to write down or put in your phone NATAS, NATAS, and W.org. Going to be talking in the documentary panel after this and talking about a passion volunteer project. It's been a year of my life, and we did a documentary called Northwest Television Trailblazers in Diversity. We aired a few of these short pieces at our Emmy show in Seattle, and a general manager, a good friend now from KSPS, Gary Stokes in Spokane, said, "That's really good content. Do you have more? Can you do more with it?" And I laughed because I was like, that was a huge project. I went to States and didn't see my family very much for 2 or 3 months, but I'm really happy to say that is airing in 7 states, and 26 stations have already picked it up, which is very exciting. That's all volunteer work. My real job, I'm a freelancer, and I freelance for stations in Boise and Seattle, and I produce a lot of corporate for a company out of London. I've produced more than $2 million in the last 5 or 6 years with clients all over the country. I don't know what that says about me. That I feel like I'm OCD. I'm like, I want to do a little bit here, a little bit there. It works for me, and I have teenagers, and it just works that I can be a little more flexible and be busy when I need to be and not as busy when not. I will work in sales for a short period of time. I got married young. I married my mapper from Bellevue Community College. We're celebrating 25 years. So I got married 3 months after I graduated from here. I didn't even walk. I was just so ready to get married and get back to Seattle. In hindsight, I should have walked. Like, that's a big deal. I can't believe walk, but for graduation. But yeah, so we followed his career for a while, and I literally looked in the phone book back when we were looking at phone books. T for television. We were in Southern California, and I was having a hard time making connections, and saw there was I was like, didn't even know what it was. Called them up. Ended up starting as a sales assistant, and the vice president liked me. Within years, I had 5 states as my region, and I was doing affiliate sales, so not ad sales. I was getting stations, cable stations. My clients were just marketing managers of major cable systems, but also some ma and pa shops, which I really loved. I would get them to carry, send them lots of fun promotional items, and I would train their customer service agents, their techs that would go install it, and I did that for 2 years before I decided I really missed being on air. And I did do gold miner commercials for them. And they didn't meet in Maui. I went for 10 days and was part of the international. So that whole idea, be flexible and willing to do everything. And I left where I made good money, make $12 an hour at a station in Yakima called KIMA. And it was pretty big. Went from there to Q13, to Como. Then I got traditional news, and I got into television. So I wanted to put that out there. There's this whole world out there. It's 13 years for the Seattle channel. We do a news magazine show called City Strain. That's won an insane amount of Emmys and awards. In Idaho, I produced documentaries for Idaho Public Television. One of those got picked up nationwide on PBS called Resilience. Hope Lives Here, looking at childhood trauma and how to be resilient. So I feel I'm a little like that's just like love writing, love communication. For me, just love people and want to tell good stories. So
Yeah, that's a great way to connect to our next part of the conversation, which is when I graduated college, I thought, I should look at what do you think is the top gap when you consider a job.
okay.
Yeah. So I'm looking at salary, and I was talking to Dan about this yesterday, and I was like, I think I got offered $19,000 to be a sports journalist. And I'm not kidding you. When I graduated, that's what they offered me. So obviously I didn't do it for me. Okay. But I looked at the money and was like, is it full time? Does it have benefits? And is it something that would resume experience? And I agree with our panelists. We should do things sometimes we do, but I think that is all a part of the process to set you up for something that you actually care about, that you actually can make money doing. 40 hours a week is a long time to be miserable, right? Isn't it? I mean, when you think about people who go to work and hate it and complain about it, can't wait till the weekend or can't wait till they get their 2 weeks vacation, that sucks, right? I don't want to live like that, and luckily I don't, which I'll tell you a little bit about in a minute how I ended up in teaching. But I wanted to ask our panelists first. Nicole, you can start, and then we'll go back the other way. What are 2 or 3 things that you could tell the students or the audience about? There's maybe, I would say, against the grain or less discussed components that you would look at when considering a job or a company. Like, obviously everybody looks at the pay. What else should you look at when you're looking at the company or the people that work there, or other factors, like if you're standing up, sitting down, could be anything.
Yeah, and it's terrible, but I never look at pay.
Okay,
I still
that's
don't
great.
to this day, especially when you go from Seattle, where you make really good pay,
Yeah.
to Boise, Idaho. We moved for just a lifestyle change. We have jobs. We did this May of 2019, and I was like, that was kind of one of my last questions was on pay. Now, I get that everybody's not in a position where, there's times where you're like, okay, I just have to be able to
Sure.
pay the bills. And I would say, for me, graduating here, location was important, and I did mentors recommended. I went back to Seattle, and, I was very blessed to have a job right away at Como News writing, but I really needed to work. I wanted to be out there reporting and putting stories together, and that's a harder thing to do, go straight to Seattle. But location to me. So I would say if you can, try to be more open with your location. But for me, and I made the right choice getting, married. And it's funny because then a few years later we moved for his job, but we were going to San Diego. So it was like, not bad, not a bad gig to be going down where the sun was. I would say, really find somebody or somebody, a friend of a friend who works there. What's the management? I've worked at stations where I would fever vomiting and told if I didn't come in, this is in Seattle, like, I was so sick I couldn't drive, and that drove me there. And I remember the anchors are like, why are you here? It was for writing. You need to go home. I'm like super sick. That's not the type of place you want to be at long term. And I was like, I'm willing to do anything. So I would say, just what's the managers, what's the company, what do they stand for? Do your research. It's more than just looking online. I feel like nowadays, and with the Coup connection, there's no excuse. Like, everybody knows everybody. Liz and I were talking, we worked at 2 different stations, different times, with the same stations. Like, just you want to get from people firsthand who are there, especially who work under them. What type of person are they? Define for yourself what matters to you. Family always is more than work for me. That's been priority. I think because I've done so much producing of health videos that, mental health really matters. And there are some really impressive happening in newsrooms. I hosted someone from WSU, and we toured all the newsrooms in Boise a couple years ago. I was blown away about all of my young reporters have my personal cell phone. And we talk about work-life balance, these things about it's okay to say no. That is night and day for me getting screamed at, and you probably would hear that, in newsrooms. And so hearing people get so angry, and I was in toxic situations, covering violence to kids was so hard for me. I was in a neighborhood at door knocks in Seattle, and this ex-boyfriend had his kid with a hammer, and I'm having a knock on the doors. They're cleaning up we're getting screamed at, get out of the neighborhood. So I always took it for me that I'm a person first. I don't even care if I get the story. I'm a human being first. I didn't always get the story, and I didn't care about that. But that's I can sleep at night. I sometimes make these connections with the victims. This one gal, her son was a drunk driver at Western, and she and I kept in touch for like 2 years. She never gave me the interview, and that's not why I connected with her. It was the right thing to do, and I could empathize with her. And I feel like you are such a better storyteller if you're a human.
Yeah, no, that's a great start. And I think once you identify your why, what you care about, what gets you out of bed in the morning, you can start to feel like you have purpose when you go to work, and hopefully you're paid to do some of that. So go ahead, Marc.
Yeah, that's true. Imran, you gave us some notes beforehand, and I typed out some things, and I'm just going to read this. Culture supersedes everything. If the culture of an organization does not align with your values, you will be met. Pardon me? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was speaking pretty loud.
Mike, close enough?
I don't think
I
those
think that's
okay.
our conference.
Sorry.
Projectable voice, Marc.
Yeah, outdoor voice. Culture superseding. If the culture of an organization does not align with your values, you will be miserable. Second is your manager. Are they committed to your growth or just self-absorbed narcissists? Okay. Third is pay, benefit, quality of the work-life balance. If you are a dependable top performer, you'll find yourself with more work than you can handle, which eats into the work-life balance. An organization finds that you keep your promises, you deliver what you say you're going to deliver, you're going to end up with a lot more work than a lot of other people. That's just the way it works. And I know, when I was getting into the workplace, we didn't really talk about balance. It was like paying benefits.
Yeah, me neither.
Wouldn't dare bring it up.
Nobody would know what you're talking about. So work-life balance, your generation, is very, very important. Flexibility, job, as far as, and being able to do things outside of work. So I honor that. I think it's great. And that's great from a mental health standpoint, from an overall health standpoint. So anyway, that's kind of my read on that.
That's awesome. Yeah, and just to elaborate on what Marc's saying, my wife works in HR, whatever it was, that she worked from home, and her company installed software in her computer that counted her keystrokes and kept track of how much she was on the screen. No joke. A week later, I was like, they're really going to do this from here on out. And she got paid well, and I was like, and we started determining, a plan B, exit plan to a different company, because that was just one thing, right? There was other things about the company that were great. She felt so stressed every day. She was like afraid to go away from the computer to do anything, and it's not a way to live. It doesn't matter. I mean, again, that's just one tiny little factor that you don't think about. But if you're working from home, how are you being managed, right? That's another thing too. It's great to work remote, but what kind of environment is it in? Have you scheduled 6 1-hour Zoom meetings per day? You would schedule 6 1-hour meetings in the office per day. I don't know anybody who's ever had it. Maybe you have, but I never have had in an 8-hour workday that many meetings, right? So I know companies who are letting you work remote because they're flexible, but then they have 6 1-hour meetings on your calendar per day. That's also not, in my opinion, a healthy or work-life balance. So go ahead, Liz.
So I'm going to be a little different in my answer, because I think when you interview about work-life balance, it's a turn-off supervisor, but I'm not saying you shouldn't look into it. And I think what I see people maybe not do right when they're looking for this job is do enough homework. And so there's a couple ways you can do that. You can look on LinkedIn, and you can look at all the job boards at entry-level positions in the industry you're going at, and you see their qualifications, and then you see the requirements of the job. Does that sound like me? Something I could do? Do I have other skills that are transferable to that? So you need to do that homework. Then you should comb those websites to see kooks that work there, because you should talk to them about culture before you go. And I'll give you an example of my own son. He works for Tableau Software, which was based in Seattle, but he works in the East Coast in Boston. He was a math major at Bucknell University in Pennsylvania. And so kind of being the hard driving mom, I'm like, you're going on an interview every week, senior year. And we looked at another company that was a social research company that I thought might him. And I said, who from your school went there? I don't know. Like, well, why don't we look together? Like, do me a favor. Look, indulge names of kids about his age, maybe 4 years older. And I saw one name, I go, Rob Tupper. Sounds familiar to me. And I said, do you know him? He goes, no. And I go, wait a minute. Does he live in Westchester, New York? Yes. I said, oh, I worked with his father for 20 years in Chicago on the network office when I was at the station. I said, I'll tell you what, tomorrow I'm going to call Marc. And if I said, I think I remember when Bobby was born, I will call and see if you two guys can talk to each other. So talking to him his age, he got really good perspective on what it was like, what the job entailed, what it was like inside the company. So I thought that was great homework. He didn't end up going to work there, and it probably wasn't the right. And that's also okay. If you get out there and go on enough interviews, you get better every time, and you'll decide, maybe that isn't the right fit for me. And there's nothing wrong with not getting it, not being elected. Wrong with saying I don't think this is the right fit for me. You won't always. You just got to get in there and give it a shot. And that, I think, your even decisions like your wife made after you've spent some time in a company. You look around and go, I have worked for supervisors I would kill for. They gave me autonomy. One of my bosses in sales management said, look, Liz, I hired you for a reason. You're smart. Make the decision. I don't want the national sales team calling me. They're supposed to call you. He goes, but if you make a mistake and you charge the wrong rate or you do something that really doesn't suit the company, you and I will talk about it behind closed doors. I couldn't ask for a better person. But I had a boss at a company who was fired for sexual harassment long after I. And he wasn't just a sexual harasser, he was a harasser. He first asked questions later. He was kind of a mean person. He did get fired eventually. What goes around, not in my tenure there. And I never left because of him, because I thought I could work around him. But I did learn something, two things, rate inventory now. Going to raise rates, and I thought, okay, I can take that away. I also knew how to people when I became a manager. And I decided I could hold people easily accountable and not be a jerk. And that's how I fashioned my own management style. But sometimes you don't know about that stuff till you get in. I want more work-life balance example. My niece, super focused young woman, agency in New York when I was still working in New York. She calls up one day, she goes, okay, offered a job by Amazon. I go, okay, is it something you want to do? She called, and she goes, not really, but it's a lot more money. There's a signing bonus, and when she was going from maybe making $40,000 to $75,000, they were going to give her $25,000 in signing. I go, look carefully. I said, you should read up on how employees feel there, and I'm not bashing the company at all, because there that love it, and I know people there that felt they were mistreated. That probably just depends on their individual. And I said, Jessica, if it's just about the money, take it. Because at the end of a crappy day, a new pair of Jimmy Choos is all right. That makes you feel better on the way home. And you can afford it now. But if it's not just about the money, and it isn't a job you'll think you'll enjoy, you will hate it. And it will be a drag every day. So she didn't end up taking it. She ended up making a move a year later, Video Amp, and she is now their national sales manager and lives in Miami and has this phenomenal life. Probably buys a lot of Jimmy Choos. So I think it's tricky. And when I would come in to interview for their first job with me, if they were only interviewing me and not telling me why I should hire them, that's a turnoff. Like, what are you doing to sell me? And I used to ask questions like, what kind of research have you done about our company? Why do you think we're a good fit for you? Why do you think you're a good fit for me? And I can tell you, I used to interview maybe 40, 60 entry-level personnel people for every sales opening we had at Fox, and I had identical resumes. They were beautiful. Someone had helped them. They studied abroad. They worked on this. They had internships. They looked phenomenal on paper. And these are candidates from fine universities all across the nation that couldn't tell me why I should hire them. At the end of the interview, and I also told this to Jessica when she was interviewing, I said, here's what's going to happen. You're going to have, if you don't ask smart questions, they're kind of going to be bored with the interview. But if you do that homework like that before and you ask smart questions, not just yourself, but about the potential of the business and business related questions, they'll pay. At the end of every interview, they're going to go, okay, Jessica, how more do you have any for me? And you're going to say, with a smile, when can I start? She goes, I can't do that. I can do it. And you can say it in a more business-like way. If you don't want to be flip and come across that way, you can just say, based on our discussion today, do you think I'm a good fit for the position? Because I want you to close me, right? Try to close me. And so I always would ask that, and people would be like, they didn't have any idea. Very next day, after her interview at the Colgate company when she was interviewing, and she goes, oh my God, it happened just like you said it would. I said, and did you guess? Well, they told me they wouldn't tell me. I said, they won't tell you, but they'll say it was the right question to ask. They did end up hiring her, and off she went on her fabulous career trajectory. I would be careful how I ask things in an interview. We're looking for people that want to work hard for us and can make a difference. If on your resume you have results-oriented bullets, maybe you did a social media project here on campus for Murrow or for the recruitment office, and you said, hey, based on the work I did, you have to say it in better language than that, but we increased our impressions by X. You know, was there a result based on it? Or maybe you were just part of a team. That's okay too. I want to see when someone hires you, are you worth it? Are you going to make a difference for me? Because you're selling me on hiring you. I don't really have to sell you. I don't think I should have to. I need to do that homework in advance. And if it's not a culture fit, don't go. Don't seek that out. But try to does align with your values. But like I said before, I've had supervisors I've learned from for the wrong reasons, and ones I've learned from the right reasons. If that helps at all.
So I want to make sure that you can ask questions. So ask questions, please raise your hand, and we can open up to any career-related questions. I have a question for you. How many people in here have done an internship? All right, so about maybe 25% of you. What do you think are the advantages to doing an internship in your career search? Yes?
Yeah. I'm a current intern for social media. I help run a podcast
Okay.
for one of our professors here on campus. It helps me to understand how a business works in the sense, like, because we work with a freelancer, so I have to make sure my graphics are on time.
Yep.
I have to make sure it's edited myself. That's where Canva kind of gets a little, because sometimes it doesn't correct you. So I have to be sure, like, grammar's correct. And then one of the biggest things is sort of being able to in this environment.
Sure.
Because it's working with a business, but it's a little lower stake than it is if I was in this role as a real campaign manager. And so I think internships give you that opportunity to make the mistakes here, so that when you get into that next role,
You're still going to make them.
maybe you make them.
But it's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
But
Right.
so great response. I think one of my childhood friends in Portland, she went to NYU internship at HBO. She was a junior or senior and PR, and then he recruited her basically when she graduated. He became the head of PR at HBO, and now she's the head of PR at Netflix. And the purpose of the story is she was about a C student, but she was the most social person ever, and that company loved her, and her skill and her talent and her motivation just synergized so well. That was what she was meant to do, and HBO knew it, and they snatched her up as soon as she walked through graduation. So I can't emphasize enough, internships allow you to love it or decide if you love it or hate it, if it matches up with your personality before you're facing the pressure of paying your mortgage, which is a great thing, okay? So if you have questions, please ask. I have one more question for the panelists, and then I would love it if you have questions as well. What?
Answered about the internship.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
of course
did a lot of internships. I did radio ones, I did TV ones, I did volunteer public relations, hospital, thrift stores, just because I had a contact, and do as many as you can. Not only is it great experience resume, but you're building your network.
Yep.
I mean, it's a very small world. In this industry, everybody knows everybody. Don't need bridges, remember that?
Very good
Like,
advice.
small market stuff is frustrating, and decent people that don't do their poll, just be careful. I've seen some really crash and burn because that person that you're working next to might be a news director, and they might be able to hire you. So get out there every summer at least, able to balance it while you're doing classes. That's great. Your summers, like, if you're serious, you should be starting those for sure your junior summer. But if you can do it sooner, do it sooner.
I love it.
Can I add one more thing too
Sure,
about internships?
of course.
I really admire it when you can, and you're perfect because you're learning about your industry when you're on one. But I also don't hold people that didn't have the opportunity. If they had a summer job that they did every year, that's honorable too. They got up and went to work every day, and that means they're a good employee. And I was just, now I've lost my train of thought, but I don't think you have to do them to get hired. I think there's an opportunity into.
Yep.
And that curious mind we talked about at the beginning, look what else do here. And you also spoke about mental health a little bit, and that's such a key component. You really need to know where you sit. I mean, personally, anxiety gets me up in the morning. Stress about my budget, stress about what I would in my sleep and wake up at 3 a.m, and I'm like heart pounding. And I used to have this recurring dream. In high school, I played piano, and I was pretty good. I'm pretty good in the living room. I'm not going to play Carnegie Hall, but I didn't play well at one time, and it haunts me to this day. And so anytime I had a say the big bosses were coming in from New York, I would have that dream about screwing up at the piano. And I'm like, oh my God. Then I'd wake up and go, okay, wait a minute, I have the answer. I solved it in my dream. So my anxiety kind of works for me. What paralyzes you, what cripples you, what gets you up in the morning. And I think you just have to consider all that. If it's a high-paced, high-pressure environment, and I did those, expectations for performance were extremely high. People that didn't perform eventually got let go. And that's just the sort of the cutthroat nature of that competitive business. It either suits you or it does. It's okay if it doesn't. Find it for you. So it's all about doing that.
I have one more question for you, but I want to make sure if anyone else has questions for anyone on the panel. So think about them. The question I have is, what is one thing an interviewer judges a candidate on that may not be discussed and hasn't really been well known, like if your belt match or if I'm right now, okay? I heard that I was black on black. Okay.
Now I'm looking.
And brown on brown yesterday. Okay.
Oh.
But no, seriously, are they looking at their social media? Is that something or are they looking at did they dress professionally? Are they looking at if they wore too much cologne or perfume? I mean, I want to know if there's one thing that you could pass along go ahead, Marc.
Yeah. So in preparation for this, I typed out a page and a half of what I call tried and true killer interview tip.
Awesome.
So these are tips. I've interviewed literally hundreds of people.
Yep.
I've been interviewed a lot too for jobs, and I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly type thing.
Sure.
Some people that interview, some people that, and so and I've got this highlighted. Oddly, the first 90 seconds of an interview are the most important.
Yep.
Research has shown that interviewers make their mind's candidate during the first 90 seconds and spend the rest of the interview justifying their decision. It's neither good nor bad. It's just human nature. So to your point, I think first impression is important.
It is.
The first 90 seem like they're informal, like people scooting chairs around, getting water and all that stuff. But it is really important.
It is.
It's crazy. But to your, I don't know about matching clothes and things. I'm a guy. I don't pay attention to that.
I don't think we're that critical of that stuff because first of all, a lot of workplaces are more casual. But
Sure.
I'd still look your best. Look your best when you come in, effort in. Have done homework on my company. It's really important to me. If you don't know, I would say, why are you here on this job? And they'd be like a soda. Okay.
Great
Then it's really downhill from there. And the other thing at the end, if I say that question like I did to my niece Jessica, do you have any more questions for us? Maybe it's, listen, or I want you to sell me at the end. Let's put it this way. I want you to say, here's why I think I'm a great fit for this job. Based on what we've just talked about, I'm good at X, and X. Like, no, are you good at? And be able to tell me, I should hire you, because that's what people don't do in the interview. They kind of wait to be told, and they're and I get the nervousness. But I want you to tell me why we should hire you. Why are you going to benefit my company by joining us? Because if you can tell me that in a not arrogant but just competent way, you're pretty attractive, right? I want to hire that guy. I also would ask people what they would read, or in the news business, in local television stations. What do you read? It doesn't have to be our product. Or watch. What's your source? It could be anything. And one guy goes, I don't really read. And I never. And I'm like, do you know what's going on in the nation right now? At the time, Baltimore was on fire. And I met because he was, I think, applying for a job in our DC market, which is right next to Baltimore. Do you know that there's a lot of turmoil? I just said, I think we're done. I sent him on his way. And I have to share one more funny interview story and this was a seasoned, supposed pro. I was working in Chicago as a sales manager, 9 months pregnant, big as a house. And that kind of came up to here, so you couldn't really see if you walked in. And a guy from Indianapolis called and said, I'm here interviewing with your competitor, already strike one, right? Okay. I said, sure, I'll see you. Why don't you come by at the end of the day? And I was on the phone and on my computer. My assistant sort of ushered him in and sat him down before I even had a chance to stand up and say hello. So we had this interview. He wasn't very good. And he showed that he did for my competitor. I'm like, really? Do you want to work here? Do you want to work at NBC? And so I finally said, well, thank you for coming by. It was nice. So I stand up and he goes, whoa, pregnant. Thank you. Right? Really feeling right now. And I wanted to punch him in the face. And so he goes, my sister just went through that, and she said it's the equivalent of a third-degree burn. Oh my gosh. Never say that to a 9-month pregnant woman. And I just said, Marilyn, could you escort Keith out?
Security!
Out of here. Never got hired by anyone in Chicago, by the way. So don't do that. I have a lot of good could write a book on bad interviews. But those are kind of things like, just give some thought. Why do I want this job and why be good at it? And you're not looking to be the CEO, so you don't have to have massive experience. I think we do give you opportunity for experiential learning here. I think I talked about that yesterday. So if you can take advantage, this makes you more attractive. But if you take advantage of it and you're terrible at it, well, that's going to eventually come. But I think you do the best you can given your own circumstance. I am from the smallest towns in America, so it's not like I had a lot of opportunity for internships, and probably because I wanted to get to a city. I could do it. And there was a woman that spoke to my class in 1978. Her name was Kay White. She's been on the Murrow board with us. She's now an affiliate member. I met her years later in New York City at a WSU luncheon. And I'm like, Kay, I need to introduce myself to you. You spoke to my class. You said, start in the biggest you can get to, which was the complete opposite advice that I got from everyone else, because there is and starting in the MAs and the Tri-Cities and stuff like that. But she had that goal too. And I said, okay, I thought about that. And I thought, I'm going to get to the highest place I can go. And then I wanted to go to Chicago. I actually interviewed in New York when I was working in Seattle. I thought, okay, this is going to sound wrong, because probably if Doug's in the room, I think I told him this story the other night. He was all about the outdoors. And I said, I was sick of going on dates with guys that thought camping. And I got to get out of the Northwest. That's the first thing my husband from Chicago asked me to do, is go camping. I'm like, oh no. We've been married 35 years. But you have your reason for making moves. So I had a cousin that lived in New York. And I go, can I come stay with you for a week? She said, sure. Or she lived like the bus into the Port Authority in New York in 1985 or whatever it was. But people would see me because I was showing up in town. Now, not everyone can do that, but I went there. I went on like a shoestring budget, stayed with Sarah, drove in every day, and then phone booths. So I roll of quarters and go into the phone booth in the Hilton and just start dialing sales organizations in New York, television sales. And say, hey, I'm in town for a week. Can you pop by your office at 3 p.m. on Thursday? If you're really specific. If you say, can I see you? They might go, well, I'm really busy. So I would do that, and I came 3 job offers. And I had virtually a year experience under my belt. One was in LA, one was in New York, and one was in Chicago. Chicago one paid the most money. And they said, well, what do you know about Chicago? So I go, well, I've never been there. Big lake, big airport. Bears are winning. It was the 86 Bears. And that was enough. And I flew People's Express Airline, which does, you wrote checks on the plane, pay for your ticket. And I went in and I called my dad almost in tears, like, I need to get me a hotel. And I ended up going there. I had an interview the next day with 9 people, one after another. It was exhausting. And I thought, there's no way. And they hired me. And one guy went on a limb. I still hold him in high regard. Larry's my sales manager. And that sort of launched it, from there. But so be bold, try things, try crazy things, and just launch. And then seek that out and be able to tell me why I should hire you. That's my main piece of advice.
Do we have any questions? We have a couple of minutes left.
Sorry, I hope I didn't monopolize.
That's okay.
the
Yes,
conversation.
please.
Hi, my name is Grace.
Hi, Grace.
I have a question regarding making connections. So I've gotten from this panel and then this yesterday that connections are really of getting up in the industry. I really like the advice about seeking out other cooks. Do you guys have any other advice in that?
I do.
for it.
I call it the informational interview.
Yeah.
Interview. It's calling up somebody at a high level of a company or an organization and seeing if you can have 30 minutes for an informational interview and get out all you can about the organization. A lot of times that leaves an impression on their mind. Is really interested in our organization, which may filter down to an job interview. Well, I'm a big fan of informational interviews.
Me too.
The other thing is, and I've got this on my list of interview tips, particularly now, every organization has got its goals and aspirations. We want to be X, Y, Z. And what I've found during interviews is if you can get those goals and aspirations and somehow filter what you've accomplished in career to show how they can, that goes a long way, because I get a lot of viewers have never really read their own organization's goals or aspirations. So you did it, and you're showing what you've done in the past and how you can help them make these specific. It's just huge. So the other thing is, in an informational interview, you can ferret out the goals and aspirations are just words on the internet, or if it really is a culture that supports the things that are. So I'm a big fan of that.
If you have any follow-ups, find me. I'm happy to chat, and for the next couple hours, few hours till we're here, and I'm sure the panelists would be happy to have one-on-one conversations. And and he has some sheets there if you want to pick one up. And
Interview
so, yeah,
tips.
thank you
You
so
can come up
much.
and
It was
ask us
awesome.
questions if you
Thank
need
the
to.
panelists.